This is such a beautiful image. It empowers us, it includes grace, it brings emotions up, it's strong. And images have incredible power. They can move markets and they can shock us. If you think back to 1865, there was an image that also shocked, or actually that did shock society. This was the debut of Manet's Olympia at the Paris Salon. And this painting created an uproar. It was so hated that actually they had to station guards nearby to protect it. And so the question is, what was it about this painting that was so hateful to people and so upsetting? Now, art historians have thought perhaps it was the expression on her face as she looks out from the canvas. Maybe it was the brush strokes, which you can't see in this image, but which are sort of brutal and kind of crude, and maybe signify distaste or revulsion at Paris society. Or maybe it was the flowers in the background. Where did they come from? Did they come from a boyfriend? Did they come from a client? Now, nude women were common in paintings for years and years and years. In fact, there's a painting that's compositionally quite similar, the Venus of Urbino, that had hung in the Uffizi Gallery for centuries. So it wasn't the content of this painting that created such shock. It was actually the context. Now, if you fast forward 100 and some years, there's another woman staring out from a canvas. This time it's a digital canvas. She's nude. She's wearing pearls around her neck, and she's playfully holding a black dress behind her. And some of you may already be guessing who this woman is, because she's one of the most famous women in the world. On the day that this photo hit the internet, Paper Magazine received 6.6 million views. And in fact, Ms. Kardashian's Instagram followers number over 80 million, which is, I believe, very close to the population of Germany. Now, the numbers are extraordinary, and all of us who use the internet understand that images are being shared at a level that we've never seen before. There's a venture capitalist in Silicon Valley. Her name is Mary Meeker, and every year she puts out what's thought of as sort of the Internet Bible, which is a state of the digital world, state of the internet report. And she found that for the past year, approximately 3 billion images are shared every single day. And to put that number in context, that's only Facebook properties, so Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, Messenger, plus Snapchat. So when you add in all the other global services, when you add in all the other kinds of ways that people share content online, it's really explosive. And if you have any doubt still that images are becoming the predominant method of communication globally, imagine this. There was a study last year by the University of Bangor in Wales that concluded what the fastest growing language is in the United Kingdom. And if you can't guess, here's your answer. This is shocking. It might be a little terrifying for some of you. But the question is then, so if images and imagery are so common, and they're being shared at such incredible rates, what can we possibly understand about them, given that one painting has generated thousands of words, maybe even millions of words and centuries of dialogue? Well, to understand a little bit about it, let's look at another photo. Now, I will bet you that in the last, second or so, from the time that I went from the previous slide to this one, you all quickly understood what this image represents. It's a woman playing tennis in a match. Now, that's what we as human beings understand, but computers have to figure this out pixel by pixel by pixel in order to be able to resolve the objects in the photo and the attributes of the photo. So that could be things like how many people are in the photo. I bet all of you thought of this as a photograph of a woman, but in fact there are 3 people in this photograph. And it has to figure out things like color and shape, and sometimes weather, and things like, is it a photograph that's safe for work or not safe for work? And scenes, is it a concert? Is it a tennis match? Is it a wedding? What is it? And so there's a branch of computer science, artificial intelligence, as you've all heard, that is focused specifically on images and how images see, or how computers see, and this is called computer vision. And just to give you a sense of a little bit of what this looks like, when we go to this next picture, you can see that this is a demo from a company called Clarify, and they have generated tags based on a computer view of this image, and some of them are quite good. You know, you can see that there's people in there, you can see that there's a tennis racket. One of the interesting things is that you can see that it's inferred that there's a tennis ball from the presence of the tennis racket. In fact, I couldn't find a tennis ball, maybe you can, but I didn't see one. So this is sort of the state of the art in the sense that you can now start to understand what's in a photograph and a little bit about context and a little bit about what that means. So let me give you another example. Here's a photograph of 16 bagels. As some of you are starting to recognize, some of these bagels have tails and ears and little eyes, and they're in fact puppies. It's a meme that was going around a while back. And in fact, what's interesting about this is it tells us that, of course, the human eye can be fooled, maybe just for a second, but the human eye can be fooled. But now when you look at the tags, you can see the computer was completely fooled and thinks that these are all photographs of delicious breakfast. So to give you a little bit more kind of a view of how all of this works, let's bring back Olympia and see what the computer thinks. Now, we're already throwing a huge curveball. And the curveball is that this is actually a photograph of a painting, not a photograph of life. So that's one piece of it. On the bottom, you see tags, and on the right, you see images. Now, most of the tags are actually quite good. You know, it identifies people, it identifies a little bit of context about the painting. But one of the things that pops up that's quite interesting is the tag religion. And any of you who know anything about this painting know that religion was about the farthest thing on Manet's mind when he painted this painting. And in fact, if it was on his mind, he was being ironic. And if you look at the right-hand images, you'll notice that they're almost all religious paintings. And so what that tells us is that in order for computers to learn what images are, what objects are inside images, it has to see thousands and thousands and even sometimes millions of other images and start to relate them and classify them, and then from there draw inferences. And so here, it's picked religion. And what does this tell us? It tells us that a lot of the images that this particular demo had seen before it saw the Manet were images of religious paintings. And so in artificial intelligence, if all you have are religious paintings, then every painting is a religious painting. And there's a saying in English, if all you have is a hammer, everything is a nail. It's basically the same idea. Now, if we bring back Venus, we see a little bit of this, but we see the tags bedroom and love in here. I'm not sure how that happened. You'd have to kind of go back and run some more experiments on it, but then you can see that the photos sort of echo that. You can see people sitting in bed together, chatting, reading, doing other things that I'm sure you can imagine. And so clearly there's some context here that isn't entirely on target, but it shows you a little bit about what the inference was that the AI made as it was classifying this image. Now let's bring back Miss Kardashian, because this is where it gets kind of fun. Now this demo, I have to say, the company that made it, they've been, you know, since we're so new at all of this, the company that made this is working on their demos and stuff, and I didn't do any special preparation or ask them to do any special preparation for this. So this was completely blind demo where I uploaded this picture and the demo actually did the rest. But the tags are actually quite correct. I mean, they talk about woman and fashion and glamour and desirable, and of course, you know, you can draw your own conclusions about what desirable means, whether this image is desirable to you or not. But on the right, we have a whole different story. We have a hookah pipe, we have some candlesticks, we have a lamp, we have 2 glasses of what I think are beer. We have gowns, my personal favorite, which is the literal hourglass. So what does this tell you? It tells you that the data set did not contain anything that would help it understand Miss Kardashian, or to put it in more everyday human terms, the algorithm had never seen a naked woman before. So here's what happens with artificial intelligence as we apply it to images. It encodes our biases. It encodes our assumptions, whether they're about religion, whether they're about sexuality, whether they're about race, whether they're about anything at all, really, whether they're about what's fun, what's not, what's luxurious. And it isn't just artificial intelligence that has this responsibility. In fact, we've been encoding bias in technology since we've had technology. There's probably bias in the first stone, cudgel that was made, back in the day. But I want to talk a little bit about sort of a more modern, but not completely modern example of this. Now, back in the 1950s in the United States, the Kodak company was the company that sold the most digital color film, or not digital film, color film in the United States. And at that time, there were photo processing centers back in ancient times when you actually had to bring your film to a place to have it processed. And each of the operators of the printers would actually receive a card, a color correction card that they would use to kind of compare against the printed version, and if that was correct, then in fact what they would do is understand that that photo was true and that they had done a good job. So that was called the Shirley card, and Shirley is the woman in the lower right corner of the screen. In fact, it's named after a real person who worked at Kodak. Her name was Shirley. And this was great because they could send it out, they'd figure out if their prints were looking good, if Shirley looked good, the prints looked good, but it had one really significant drawback, which is that it was terrible for photographs of people of color. And so over the years, Kodak sort of took the feedback, and in the 70s, they actually released a set of different Shirley cards to correspond to different races, and actually came out with film that was designed to actually print beautifully with a range of skin tones. But it took some time. And then in 2009, some of you may have heard that Hewlett-Packard got in trouble because their webcams could actually not see or recognize images of people of color. And so technology has been doing this for a really long time. Now, we're sort of at a crossroads today. We have never in our history had as much data as we have. Images, text, video, and it's just increasing all the time. And in fact, IBM says that 90% of the data in the world was created in the last 2 years alone. And that data is being encoded into systems and will be encoded into systems that will make decisions for us more and more and more. And that technology, artificial intelligence, has tremendous value, potentially. It has value in precision medicine, it has value in particle physics, it has value for driverless cars, for robotics, and it also, to a great extent, determines the news that we read in our feeds every single day. So it has incredible power. Now, it also has this habit of encoding our biases. But what's interesting about computer vision is that it doesn't only encode our biases, it actually reveals them. And it reveals them much, much faster than was possible in the past. And so we have this incredible opportunity, actually, to stop and take stock of the digital future that we are building and ensure that it's a future that we and our children and our children's children will want to live in. Thank you very much.